The days that followed felt like the calm before a storm no one could predict. The world was suspended between silence and chaos. Every hour, every headline, every rumor carried the weight of war. Inside the Kremlin, a dimly lit meeting stretched deep into the night. Putin's closest generals stood around a long oak table, their faces tense, their words careful. The briefing was grim. American Tomahawks were now operational in western Ukraine, positioned near Lviv. Russian reconnaissance drones confirmed it. They were ready to strike at any moment. Putin listened without expression. Finally, he spoke. "If they launch, we respond. If they don't, we wait, but we prepare." The order was clear. Russian air defense systems were moved closer to the border. Fighter jets went on constant patrol. Submarines in the Black Sea disappeared from radar. The message to Washington was unspoken but understood. We are watching. Across the Atlantic, in Washington, D.C., the atmosphere was equally tense. The Pentagon was operating around the clock. Intelligence analysts tracked Russian troop movements, cyber activities, and propaganda signals. Trump's advisors were divided. Some urged him to show restraint, others pushed for a display of strength. Trump, as always, leaned toward the latter. Late one night, during a private meeting with his defense team, Trump slammed his fist on the table. "We're not backing down." Not this time. They understand one language: power. He ordered a naval task force to move into the Mediterranean, close enough to be noticed but far enough to avoid direct confrontation. NATO allies were uneasy. France called for de-escalation, Germany pleaded for diplomacy, but Poland and the Baltic states supported the move, fearing what would happen if Russia wasn't stopped now. Diplomats raced between capitals, but trust was eroding fast. Then came the moment everyone had feared. At dawn, Ukrainian defense forces detected unidentified drones near a Tomahawk launch site. Minutes later, explosions rocked the facility, a precision strike, likely from Russian missiles. Flames rose high into the air, and by the time the smoke cleared, several Tomahawks had been destroyed. Kyiv went on full alert. President Zelensky appeared on national television, his face pale but defiant. "They think they can intimidate us," he said, "but we will not bow. With our allies, we will stand." Trump's reaction came within. It started on a cold morning in Washington, long before the sun rose over the Capitol dome. Inside the White House, the corridors were unusually quiet, yet the tension was thick enough to feel. In the Situation Room, Donald Trump sat surrounded by his top military advisors, intelligence officers, and a few trusted political allies. On the large digital screen before them, satellite images flickered. Russian convoys massing along the Ukrainian border. Missile silos activated, and radar signals lighting up like storm clouds. Trump leaned forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "If they want to play hardball, we'll show them what American resolve looks like." And with that, the decision was made. The United States would send Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. Not symbolic aid, not words. Real firepower. When the news broke, the world froze. Headlines screamed across every major network. Trump authorizes Tomahawk shipment to Kyiv. NATO leaders scrambled into emergency sessions, and European capitals pulsed with anxiety. The Kremlin's silence was deafening. Everyone knew a response was coming, they just didn't know when. In Moscow, the atmosphere was electric with anger and disbelief. Behind closed doors, Vladimir Putin gathered his inner circle. Intelligence briefings detailed the range and capabilities of the Tomahawks, 1,500 kilometers, precision-guided, capable of hitting targets deep within Russian military infrastructure. To him, this wasn't defense. It was provocation, a direct challenge. He turned to his generals and said, quietly but firmly, "They've crossed the line." Within hours, Russian media erupted with fury. State channels called it an act of aggression. Military analysts spoke of retaliatory options. Russian bombers began conducting patrols near NATO airspace. Cyber units were placed on high alert, and deep beneath Moscow, inside the fortified command center, Russian missile crews received standby orders. Meanwhile, in Kyiv, the Tomahawks arrived under heavy secrecy. They were flown in on C-17 transport aircraft, shielded by layers of diplomatic cover stories. Only a handful of Ukrainian officials even knew where the weapons would be stationed. For them, it was a symbol of hope, a sign that the West finally meant business. Yet even inside Ukraine, whispers of fear circulated. Everyone knew that these missiles might ignite something far larger than anyone could control. In the following days, intelligence agencies reported strange movements across the Russian border. Submarines in the Black Sea repositioned. Long-range artillery units appeared overnight in Belarus. The tension was no longer just political. It was military, tangible, seconds away from eruption. Trump, in his usual fashion, took to social media. His post read, "The U.S. stands with freedom. The world must know. America doesn't back down." The post went viral, drawing both praise and panic. European allies were split. Some saw it as strength, others as reckless escalation. Then came Russia's move. Early morning, satellite imagery revealed that Russia had deployed its Iskander missile systems closer to the Ukrainian frontier. Putin addressed the nation, his expression hard and controlled. "If American weapons are used against Russian forces," he warned, "our response will not be limited to Ukraine." The world held its breath. Stock markets plunged, oil prices spiked, and diplomatic hotlines buzzed through the night. In the United Nations, emergency sessions dragged into the early hours as ambassadors traded accusations. "You are pushing us to the brink," Russia's delegate thundered. "You are defending an invasion," came the reply from the West. Meanwhile, rumors began circulating that a Russian cyber attack had hit several U.S. defense networks. No one admitted it publicly, but insiders whispered of massive data breaches and satellite disruptions. It was becoming clear this was no longer just a regional conflict. It was the opening act of something global. And yet, behind the chaos, both Trump and Putin played a deeper game. Intelligence leaks suggested that secret back-channel communications were underway, covert envoys meeting in neutral countries, discussing possible red lines and ceasefire zones. But each leader wanted to appear unshaken in public, projecting strength to their audiences while quietly fearing what could come next. In the final hours of that tense week, something unexpected happened. A missile alert went off in southern Poland. A Tomahawk reportedly malfunctioned during a training exercise and veered off course. Though it caused no casualties, the explosion sent shockwaves through NATO. For a few terrifying minutes, the world stood on the edge of World War III. Trump immediately called an emergency press conference. "We will not apologize for defending freedom," he declared, flanked by American flags. "But we are open to dialogue, as long as Russia steps back." Putin, on the other hand, addressed his people with a steely calm. "Russia does not seek war, but we are ready for any consequence." And just like that, the first chapter of this geopolitical thriller reached its uneasy pause. The world was no longer the same. The Tomahawks had flown, the lines had blurred, and both Washington and Moscow knew that every move from here on would decide not just their futures, but the fate of the entire world. Because in this game of power, once the first missile flies, there's no such thing as a clean ending, only choices and their consequences.